Hi, I'm author Sandra Pavloff Conner. Welcome to my newest project, Audio Short Stories. This project is pure fun because I get to read my stories to you. Now I hope you have a great cup of coffee or tea or cocoa at your side. If you don't, of course, you can hit that pause button and run to get one, but hurry back. Now, before I read, let me say that if you enjoy this story, I'd really appreciate your clicking on the thumbs up button below the video, and I'd love for you to leave me a comment as well. Now, are you ready? Are you in a comfy chair with your feet propped up? Okay, here we go. Today's story is entitled, As the Plot Unravels. I don't know what to do, Nevill groaned, rubbing his hands roughly over his face. Then he pushed his laptop out of the way and leaned both elbows onto the coffeehouse table where he sat, propping his chin in his hands. "What's wrong?" Clarence, the waiter bussing the table next to Neville's, turned to question him. Nevill looked up, startled. "Oh, blast! I didn't realize I'd said that out loud. Sorry," he added, looking sheepishly around the room to see if other customers had heard. He was relieved to see that Elixir of Life Coffee House was having one of its quieter days. "No problem," Clarence answered and walked over to Neville's table. "Can I get you a refill?" "Yeah, that would be great," Nevill answered, handing the boy his cup. "It's been a rough writing day." The young man returned in record time with Neville's refill and stayed to talk a moment. "Do you have what they call writer's block?" "No," Nevill shook his head and continued. "No, Clarence, this isn't writer's block. In fact, I almost wish I did have that dreaded condition. My problem isn't that I can't get the story to move along. This story's moving along at an incredible pace. The problem is that it's writing itself, and my original plot is unraveling as fast as I can put my fingers to the keyboard." "You mean you're not in control of your own story?" Clarence looked at Nevill as if he had lost his mind just a little, and that made Nevill laugh. "Don't worry, my boy," he said. "I've not gone bonkers yet. And thanks for making me laugh. It helps. But to answer your question, no, I'm not in control of my own story." "Wow, how does that happen?" Clarence asked, really into this new information he was being exposed to. "Well, it's not too unusual for a writer to get into a novel and find that one of his characters seems to gravitate in a direction other than what he had originally planned, or that the story seems to be flowing toward an ending that's different from what he jotted down in his outline. But what's happening in my story is different." "How?" Nevill shook his head and sighed. "I'm not sure how it's happened, but every character seems to be taking on a brand new identity and making his own decisions. For example, the guy I had pegged as the hero has suddenly become the villain, and the woman he loves is rapidly developing feelings for his best friend, which means he will probably end up killing his best friend. Actually, he's already entertained the idea, and maybe he would even end up offing the woman as well." "But does it matter who ends up being the villain and the hero?" Clarence asked. "I mean, as long as you have one of each, it'll come out even, right?" Nevill chuckled. "Well, it's not quite that easy. You see, my publisher assigned me a contract to do a specific kind of story, one that will be a believable sequel to my last 3 novels. They were money makers, and I'd hate to mess up a record like that. I spent most of the money I made on them, of course, and now I need more." He rubbed his face agitatedly again. "Besides that, I'd be breaking my contract if I didn't give them what I guaranteed." "You do have a problem," Clarence said, so engulfed in the conversation now that he just sat right down at the table beside Nevill. They both sat in silence for a moment, Nevill stirring his coffee and staring at it as if he could somehow find an answer in the dark liquid. Finally, Clarence asked, "Why don't you just delete all that part that changed and go back to your first chapter and start over on the story you intended to write? That would take care of it, wouldn't it?" "Well, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that." "Why not?" Clarence asked, his face showing his obvious confusion. "Well, Clarence, as strange as I'm sure it sounds to you, the truth is that I've totally lost track of the story I intended to write. And besides," he paused and glanced off to the side, lost in thought for a moment. Clarence waited, figuring Nevill was trying to work out a plan. Suddenly Nevill looked back at Clarence with a smile on his face. He looked serene now, rather than agitated, and Clarence leaned toward him across the table to ask, "You figure something out? How to stop this runaway story?" "Nope," Nevill said, grinning wider. "I'm not going to stop this story, Clarence." "Huh?" Nevill reached over and rested his hand on Clarence's shoulder. "Clarence, my boy, I have made a decision. I'm going to give this story my whole heart and soul and let it lead me wherever it wants to go." But what about your contract and all?" "Blast the contract," Nevill said, beginning to close up his laptop and slip his notes into his briefcase. "If that publisher can't see the truth about the value of this story, then he can sue me." "But no more buts, my boy," Nevill answered, rising from his chair, laptop under his arm. "This is the best damn story I've ever written in my life, and I've just decided I'm free enough to give my creativity its own head and let it take me to my destiny." Nevill slapped down his last $5 as a tip for Clarence and headed out the door, whistling. The end. Now, if you enjoyed this story, take a look at the information right below this video. You'll find a link to my Amazon authors page where you'll find lots of books by me: novels, short stories, poetry, and nonfiction Christian educational and devotional books. So hop over there and check them out. But before you go, don't forget to give this story a thumbs up and leave me a comment. And if you'll hit that subscribe button, you'll get a notification when I post the next story in this project. Hope to hear from you soon. Bye for now.